So in this case, the sa and the fa, they become more like resting points. Fa, fa. And then this pentatonic sound becomes more of the color in the raga. So, and then it also builds up more tension when you don't come to the resolution. And you stay in this pentatonic sound, which is nirega madhani. Nirega madhani. Now listen, I'm using ni, but I'm going between the notes. I'm going ni da ni de ni, but I'm only using the ni syllable. Ni, 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 See, when you have too many of the sargams, you're breaking up the aesthetics of these slides, how we're sliding between the notes. I could say, but when we're learning the sargams, it's really helpful to have, it's kind of like spelling it out for you. Fa, re, ga, ni, re, ta, ni, re, ga, ma, da, ni. But as you get more into the music, you'll find that you want to just use less syllables and more pure sound. So the feeling becomes deeper that way. Now, who remembers when we talked about Vadi and Samvadi? So there are two notes in the raga which have more prominence, more presence, more, they kind of rule the raga like a king and queen. And those notes are ga and ni. Ga, the third and the seventh. So when we hit those notes, we'll typically stay on them longer, and we'll kind of, the way they interact with the other notes have more power to them. maybe. Ga. So try making your own phrases this week, just that all lead back to God. Maybe they start on God or they end on God, but they emphasize God. So then you'll get more to the sound of the raga, because that's the vadi, that's the ruling note of the raga. Ga re ma re ga ni re ga ma da ni re ga ma da ni re ga pa ma ga ma re ga da pa ma ga da ni re da. Ga ma da ni re ga. Octave. So using the pentatonic from ga to ga. Ga ma da ni re ga. So this is Vadi, V-A-D-I. Vadi is like the ruling note. The Samavadi then is the second most important note. Mi. So now let's sing phrases that keep coming back to ni. They could start on ni or not, but they keep coming back to emphasize ni. Da ni re ga re mi ma ga ma ga ma da ni da So you see how emphasizing these notes, it really gives a certain feeling to the rag. And this is one of the most important ways you can bring out the essence of it. You really hear the quality of the rag through these vadi and samvadi. So ga and ni, remember that. Ga. Now let's try phrases that use both of them, that go up and down between them. Ga ma da ni. Da ni da ma ga. Da ma re ga ni. Ni ga ma da ni re ga. Ga ni ga ni. Ni re ga ma da ni re ga ma ga. Ba. Ma re ni da ni re ga re. effect of sa after all that time, it really kind of brings you back to a resting place. And it's very important that you do that. But it's kind of like taking a little journey and coming back. You know, you have to have the other elements and the other feeling before you come back. So the longer you can kind of sustain your creative movements with, say, a movement like these pentatonic movements where we avoid sa and pa and then come back and settle in them, it has a feeling of going away and coming back, at least in my mind. Whatever the feeling is for you is legitimate, but if you follow this structure, you'll really start to develop a relationship with the raga, and that's what you want, because you want this when you learn a raga or start to get into it, you want it to become part of your musical language. And then this is the way you can do it, by getting these structures really clear in your mind and hearing them like you would hear a song that you know very well. The difference is that the raga is kind of like an infinite capacity. It's like a whole musical universe that you can enter into and then be creative and find your own expression in it. And that's the beauty of this music. You just have to go through the disciplined practice of really learning the patterns and the system first. So, Sunita asked a good question. When can we slide into a pitch and when not to? So, it's really not fixed. I think the way we learn to do it and to balance the kind of the moving notes, which I like to think of in a space of circularity. Like when a note moves, it has a kind of, even though it may move down and up like this, instead, I think of it more of an ellipsis than a straight line. And in my mind, that's helpful because it helps me keep the phrases rounder. Like, I think there's really something to this, the round feeling of the moving notes. But there's not really a way that I can say, in certain ragas you have certain notes that you move more frequently between. But there's no general rule that says, okay, you can only slide between these notes at these times. So it's really kind of something you learn by osmosis, by a lot of learning and studying, that you balance, and it's an aesthetic thing. So, and as we develop the raga more into the faster movements, we still use the moving notes, but maybe we use them a little bit less than at the beginning, when there's a lot of stillness and a lot of long tones. So the possibility of musical, emotional expression in that movement, especially the alap, is greater with the movements, with the sliding tones, than when, say, you're playing a composition that's very fast, That still has those sliding notes, but a lot of the movements are just quick movements, so you don't have time to slide between them. This is a song form called Tarana, which uses drum syllables for the lyrics of the melody. So instead of many classical songs will have actual lyrics in Hindi or another language, but this form called Tarana uses drum syllables. So instead of the words would be O dani tani dim tanana de na dim ta de na, and then we set that to notes instead of sargams. Instead of ni re ga ni re ni da ba ma ga re, or instead of lyrics, we're using these drum syllables. O dani tani dim tanana de na dim ta de na. This is a faster composition, so a lot of those movements will not have this kind of circularity that I'm talking about, these slides that Sunita's asking about. But then when the melody slows down, then we can add them. So it's kind of like an aesthetic balance, how we can serve the music without having everything be formulaic, you know. And I think that part of the music gives it its real, like, present momentness. I don't know how else to say that, but that feeling that, like, something is being created on the spot. It's not, even though this raga may be, you know, centuries old, the expression of it is fresh in the here and now. So that's, I think, really what is really special about this music, and really beautiful, because once you get deep enough into it, you find yourself embracing the raga as part of your language, part of who you are, and it's like having a relationship with someone who both teaches you and you can have this conversation with it. So sorry, that wasn't really an answer to your question, but I hope that's I hope that's helpful, because there's really no rule I can express. You know what I mean, Sunita? Okay, cool. Does anybody else have any kind of related question about that, or about anything we're doing right now? All right then. All right. John, what about you? You had some kind of question.
Do you ever talk about the Pakad and the Chalan?
Yeah, we have.
I was not around.
That's cool.
Was...
So the pakad, I would say, is like nirega parega. So these are the phrases which really, pakad, by the way, everyone, is like the catchphrase. It identifies the raga, so that if all you were to hear was this one phrase, you would immediately know it was Yaman. So every raga has a phrase like that, which is kind of like their own. It helps really ground the identity of that raga, because those pakad phrases will not be shared with other ragas. So if someone sings nirega ma pa ma ga, or nirega, even just that, nirega ma pa ma ga, or nirega pa. These are the phrases that I would identify as a pakad. There's another name for it that some people use, swarup. Kind of a funny word. Swarup. You know, in Sanskrit, that W and the V are kind of like the same letter. So you'll see an SW or SV, Svarup, Swara, the note Swara with a V or a W. It's the same thing, same consonant.
What is a chalan?
Pakad and Swarup are the same. Now Chalan is like a bigger group of notes. I like to translate it as the phraseology of the raga. So pretty much everything we've been singing could be classified as chalan. The chalan is like the map, all the basic phrases that contribute to the sound of the raga. So it's a little bit more subjective. But pretty much everything in Indian music and philosophy is a little bit subjective. There's always a million little side things you can go down and be like, oh, okay, but this, oh, but that, you know. So just try to read about Indian philosophy sometimes.
Here's a question I've always...
Is it dualist? Is it non-dualist? Is it this? Is it that? You know?
Yeah.
So, but chalan is like all the basic phrases that kind of encapsulate the sound of the raga. So say a lot of these pentatonic sounds could be considered chalan. Ni re ga ma da ni re ga re sa. With the resolutions also. Ni da ni re sa. Ni da pa. Does that make sense?
You know, it's something I always wanted to ask is how, from going from a alap and getting into the rhythmic section, sometimes I'll be at a concert and suddenly like they're in time, and they're, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't catch what the transition is or how they, you know.
Yeah.
If it's predetermined, like, or I'm gonna give you an eyebrow or something.
Well, there's 2 points at which, like, the rhythm comes in. There's the point in the alap without the tabla or without the pakawaj where you're just bringing in a pulse, like this is called jor. So this is not really in a rhythm cycle, but you're bringing in like a pulsation. So, which wasn't there before in the alap. So the alap is just this free time amorphous expression of melody, right? So then when you bring in the jor, first of all, it's not fixed when you bring it in. So it's not like obvious, except to people who've been in the music a long time. It's like, oh, here it comes. There it goes. But the jor is the part where you just bring in, like, it's like in two, you can think of. So if you listen to alap jor, J-O-R, then you really get this sense of the development of the alap itself, even before the drums come in. So this is one stage. Then the point at which the drums come in, then we're actually dealing with the rhythmic cycle. So we're either singing a song called a bandish or a cheese, or a gut, an instrumental piece, which is called gut, which just means composition. Now, it's like ga ga re ga ma ba ma ga re ni re ga re ga ma ba ma ga re ni re ga re ga ma ba ma ba da ni da ba ma ga ba ma ma ga. So now we're set to Teen Tall in the 16-beat cycle. So these are the points at which we would bring in rhythmic elements in the traditional context. you know, and then from there it would just become more elaborate and evolved, more rhythmic until you have like a climax and like a big T high.
And the tabla player would be familiar with the got already. Like, it's not like you just pull something out on
Not
him.
necessarily.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it'd be like being in a jam session and someone just pulls a new tune on you, but you hear the usually
You can hear
so
what.
much of the rhythmic figures are so familiar that you can a good tabla player can just jump in even though they don't know the guy
You
because
know.
they can feel the sum coming.
Uh,
Like because of the they're so used to hearing the different accents in different in these typical places,
mm,
they'll hear the one and they'll just be able to immediately start playing even just after hearing it for like 5 or 10 seconds,
mm,
because they'll understand the rhythmic context immediately.
mm, mm.
Yeah, and that's just like, you know, it's like when you're playing son,
Yeah.
you hear if it's, you know, on the 3 side or the 2 side or whatever.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, because of your
So,
experience with that.
so like within Tala, there's like stresses and accents. The way you would write a got,
Yeah,
compose a got. Wow. All right. Cool.
yeah. So,
Just gotta
and
don't.
then a good tabla player will just be able to sense that and come right in. They may have never heard it before. That particular composition.
Mm,
So that's kind of a cool thing. And when I started learning this music, I was like, wow, like how do they know?
yeah.
And it almost feels like I used to listen to this tape by Zakir, um, Shiv Kumar Sharma and Zakir Singh, and I saw them in India when I was a kid in Delhi. Like I was like 16 or something, like 1986. And I went to this concert. I was like, shit, these guys are like telepathic. You know, like the rhythm was so tight, but I could tell they were improvising.
Yeah.
And it's because of the rigor of the of how much they've number one how much they play together, the rapport number one, but also just the tradition, the rhythmic sensibility is so refined,
Mm, mm,
so they can just start and they're completely together, you know.
mm,
And that really blew my mind. It was one of the things that really made me want to really pursue the rhythmic aspects of it uh, deeper, because basically, you know, you can bring a good professional tabla player on a concert, never having once played together. And if they're a sensitive player, they can really follow you, and you can have a great concert with a lot of interaction. And people will say, "Wow, how long you guys been playing together?" It was like, "Oh, we never played together.
yeah.
This is the first time." People are like, "What?" Because there's a built-in system,
Yeah.
you know, and you have that in a lot of music, you know,
Yeah.
but still people will be like who don't know, you know, that style of music, or don't know how the music is learned or practiced. People are like, wow, how did you do that? That seems like totally telepathic. But it's that's one of the things that really um, ignited my mind about this music, is that sense that like we can have this intimate connection with the rhythm uh, very quickly. Boom. But it takes years and years of really soaking in the music. It's not like you can just do that after a couple months.
And also understanding the talas and the rhythm. I guess that's why you keep going over the rhythm so
Yeah.
much. Because once that gets ingrained, then you know where, it's almost like watching the jump rope go. And then you know when to jump in.
Yeah.
A little more complicated, but.
Yeah. So Any other questions on that subject? Or me? Jesse? Kabir? We never hear from Kabir. He's always in the black somewhere. We know you're up there in Santa Barbara somewhere. Nick? Nelson? How's it going, Brian? You good? Mike? Sebastian?
Yeah, actually, I have a question about the pentatonic lattice. So, um, in your improvisation, you could play that one up and down, right? And it would still always be Rag Yaman, and you can just like play those 5 notes in any order, right?
You can.
Okay, and would still be within the realm of Yaman.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a really cool thing about this, and no one really taught me this, and so it's kind of a concept I came up with for this raga, but I think it really helps to get you into the sound. So, and did anyone see the bass videos I did on the Yaman pentatonics?
Yeah, I watched
Cool.
those.
Yes.
All right, cool. So there's one more I'm still gonna release, but they're basically just they're little just explaining how you can start on any note on that pentatonic scale and create phrases up and down and even jumping phrases, and it will sound like Rag Yaman. And what we're really doing is kind of slaloming along. I always think of like these slalom skiers. I don't know, because I grew up in Colorado for a little bit, but I think of like the slalom skiers that they're avoiding those points, right? So that's like the sa and the pa, and so you're going around them and you're creating this beautiful texture around the drone. So and if you think like, okay, so right now we're in B. To get the pentatonic scale, if you want to think of it from like a Western theory perspective, so this is B Lydian. So if I come down a half step, you could think of it as B flat. Most people would think of B flat as opposed to A sharp, but technically it's probably better to think of it as A sharp because it's based on the 7th. A sharp is the 7th in the key of B. So then you would create a minor pentatonic on that A sharp. So, but let's do this. Let's pretend we're in C, because this will be easier to think about it. If we're in C, so imagine this is C. Sa, ni. The ni is B in the key of C. So then you would create a B minor pentatonic. And so da re ga ma da ni da ma ga re ni de ga ma da ni. If you play guitar, and I know you play guitar, obviously, Sebastian, and John. I call this the rock and roll scale. I mean, it's one of the first scales we learn as rockers. You know, when you want to, cop some freaking Jimmy Page licks or some shit, you gotta know your minor pentatonic. It's like the first guitar lesson for a lot of us, But it's interesting that we're using this and it doesn't have that kind of sound of the minor pentatonic, but it is those intervals because our drone is a half step up from that root of your minor pentatonic. So all you have to do is think of whatever key you're in, go down to the 7th and build your minor pentatonic from there. Ni de ga ma da ni da ma ga de ni. So say you're in D. If you're in the key of D, just go down to the C sharp, the 7th, and build your minor pentatonic on that. If you're in G, go down to the F sharp and build your minor pentatonic. You just got to come down a half step, a semitone, from Sa to Ni. So, and then with that pentatonic sound, you can start on any note, like you were saying, Sebastian. You can jump to any note, and you'll still feel like you're in the raga. Now, if you keep playing this pentatonic over and over again, and you never come to sa or ba, it's after a while it's gonna sound kind of whack. It's gonna sound like a little formulaic because you have to bring this. You have to bring the resolution back. For instance. Ni da ni de ga ma da ma da ni de ga ma re ga ni de da ni ma da ni de ga re sa ni da So at the end of all those phrases, I came to the high sa, then I came to the pa, and I came to the sa. So it was like I went away from all this drone sound, but I'm going through it, and then I brought it back. Does that make sense? Yeah? Cool. So, I'm going to put together some patterns, I think, that I can write out for the pentatonics, but I would experiment with them and just try to feel what it sounds like to go away from the sa and the pa, to use the pentatonics, and then to come back to them and feel the difference in the music when you do that. And I think that's good for tonight. We'll just finish with a few rhythm exercises. How does that sound?
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. And if anybody's interested in this instrument, let me know.
I'm going to make my exit, Paul.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look, John Lennon's T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the original one he wore. Yeah, man. All right, so let's see. Let's try it with Sum and Kali. So this is Sum, the clap, and the Kali is the antithesis. It's the non-beat. So emphasis and de-emphasis. Da, da, di, do. Oh, I want to show you guys some new phrases tonight, just to practice, because these are really cool. I'm gonna put them in the chat. These are very typical South Indian phrases, which are really good for reciting. Da, di, dom, num. So, da, di, dom, num. So, when you learn mridangam or any of the South Indian percussion instruments, they use these phrases to get your tongue moving and to get the basic rhythmic vocabulary going. So let's practice with these a little bit tonight. Da, di, dom, num. Da, da, di, dom, num, num. Da, 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 di, dom, num, num. Da, 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 di, dom, num, num. Da, di, dom, 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 num. Then, like I was doing, repeat them. Da, 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 di, dom, num, num, num. Da, 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 di, dom, num, num, num. Da, di, dom, num, da, di, dom, num, da, di. If you notice, you really have to change the shape of your mouth to enunciate these properly. Da, da, di, dom, num, num, num. ta, di, dom, num. Ta, di, dom, num. Are y'all trying this? Ta, di, dom, num. So, all these different sounds, we really have to enunciate what we're doing to make these work. Ta, di, dom, num. Ta, di, dom, num. Ta, di, dom, num. Ta, ta, di, dom, dom, num, num. Ta, ta, di, dom. Ta, 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 di, dom, 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 num, num, num. Ta, 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 di, dom, 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 num, num, num. Ta, di, dom, num. Ta, di, dom, num. Ta, di, dom, num. Now, let's just take ta and go through our rhythm scales, stepping with it. 2, 3, 4. Ta, ta, di, dom. Just ta. Ta, 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 di, dom, 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 num, num, num. Ta, 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 di, dom, 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 num, 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 num. Ta, 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 di, dom, dom, num, 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 num. So, practice these because I think in the future we'll use them for different kinds of tonguing practice. Because a lot of solkatu moves very fast. So if we do exercises with our tongue and can enunciate things clearly, we can make rhythmic music out of these syllables and use them for our own music however we want, you know. So and we just want to be able to relate them to a constant, which is what playing in a tempo or in groove or whatever is all about, right? So that's why I really like this idea of moving with the rhythm and embodying it. So as we go. So I don't have a metronome on at home, but let's do this at home. So 60, 70, up to 80 or faster when you get there. So let's see. Ta, ta, di, dom. Let's go through the old syllables we learned too now. Taka, dimmy, taka, dimmy, taka, dimmy, taka, dimmy, taka, dimmy, taka, dimmy, taka, dimmy. That's 4. Now, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, taka. Now we're in 5. Taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita. Now, when I'm saying we're in 5, what does that mean? We're in a jati of 5. We're not in a 5-beat tala. Because I'm still counting 1, 2, 3, 4. But each of those individual beats I'm subdividing in 5. So that's called jati, J-A-T-I. So it's the difference between saying, okay, something's in 4-4, and now we have these quintuplets on each beat. So 5, 5, 5, 5. 4 groups of 5 still in 4-4. Taka takita, taka takita, taka takita, taka takita. So basically we have 20 pulses in this bar of 4-4. That's jati. That's a subdivision of the beat, not an overall tala of 5 beats. This is a really important distinction because we can have a tala of 5 or 10 beats and have the 5 subdivisions. But that's another level of complexity, and we need to master this first. So we keep the tala even for now, and we do these different subdivisions. So taka takita, 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 taka takita. Now, let me just show you this variation for those of you who've kind of mastered this a little bit. So the basic 5, I'm going to put it in the chat, is taka takita. You see that? So it's basically a 2-3 subdivision. Now, if I want to extrapolate on that, taka takita taka. Say I want to expand that 3 section and do some double notes. Then I could say taka, which is the same. And then the first part of takita, the same. Taka ta. And then I'll double the last 2 of that 3. So instead of kita, I'll do kita taka. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the slow ones capital and the fast ones lowercase. Kita, taka. So look at that. Taka, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, taka, takita. So the last two beats, the last two subdivisions, of that phrase will then be double speed. So instead of taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, kita, taka, that last kita becomes kita, taka. So try this. Taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, taka, takita, taka, tarikita, tarikita, taka, taka, tak. Now, tarikita, tarikita, taka. That's completely, all of the 5 subdivisions of that phrase have been doubled. Taka, takita, taka, kita, taka, tarikita. What did I say? Taka, takita, taka, tarikita, tarikita, taka. Tarikita, tarikita, taka. So terekita, it becomes terekita plus terekita, tarikita, taka. Ta-di-kita, taka. You see that? So then the whole thing becomes doubled. So you didn't use any capitals there. Tarikita, tarikita, taka. Tarikita, tarikita, taka. Tarikita, tarikita, taka. So what I recommend when you're wanting to do these double phrases is start with the single speed and then add some of the double phrases and then complete it. So for instance, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, taka, takita, taka, tarikita, tarikita, taka, tarikita, tarikita, taka, tarikita, tarikita, taka. But make sure your divisions of the tala in your phrasing are clear. Like 2 plus 3 we're doing here. So typically you would just do the beat. Taka, takita, taka, takita, taka, takita. But if you need to feel more detail there, then don't be afraid to break it up into 2 3s. Almost all rhythms, odd rhythms, are built out of 2s and 3s. So, any questions about that? Because this is a good exercise. I think if we can work on, we can. I can bring a composition I wrote, which is basically extrapolates a whole 16-beat thing from single to double gradually. It goes like this. If I can remember it. Taka, taki, taka, dimmy, taki, taka, dimmy. That's the single speed. It's a bar of 16. Taka, taki, taka, dimmy, taki, taka, dimmy. Then slowly we start extrapolating to doubles. Taka, taki, taka, dimmy, taki, taka, dimmy. Taka, taki, taka, taka, taki, taki, taka, dimmy. Taki, taki, taka, taka, taki, taka, taki, taka, taka, taki, taka, taki, taka, dimmy, taki, taka. Taki, taki, taka, dimmy, taki, taka. Taki, taki, taka, taka, taki, taki, taka, dimmy. Taki, taki, taka, taka, taki, taka, taka. So it actually may sound complex, but it's not complex at all. It's the exact same rhythm with certain sections of it being doubled. And I taught this to like beginning level high school music students in my Splach ensemble. And they like mastered it in a couple of weeks because all it took was breaking it down into these smaller elements. And so a lot of the stuff with soccatu can sound so almost like overwhelmingly rhythmically complex because we're just hearing it as like this blur of notes. It's like if you're first learning a language and someone like speaks really fast at you and you're like, oh shit, I can't understand. I only understand 2 of those in like 20 words. Once you break it down into the simple word, like these are the words, and you hear them and you recognize them, then you can put the whole flow together relatively quickly. When just a few minutes earlier you thought like, whoa, that sounds like really heavy and complex. It's really not. So when I just do taka, All it is taka taki taka dimi taki taka dimi, with a lot of with all those phrases being having their memorized doublings under your tongue. So I hope that's helpful for tonight. These phrases, if you want to copy them here or just remember them, is fine. But I don't think this chat is available once we close the meeting. So do that now if you want them. Otherwise, keep them in your head, keep them in your heart, and practice them. And we'll see you all next week if you're free. And I'm probably going to do one or two more classes and then take a break because I'm going to be going up to Mount Wilson for some backpacking with my daughter. And yeah, and then we'll probably resume in September. But I will teach next week if y'all are going to be here. All right?
Right on.
Right on, Sudama. And hey, Mia. Good to see you, sister. So, anybody have any other questions? All right. Well, I'm going to sign out then. Love you guys. Have a glanging week, and I hope this is continuing to be helpful. All right, y'all. Peace and love. Stay strong.
Peace out.
Be healthy. Change the world one loving hug at a time. Talk to you later.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.